Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. I want to talk about a principle that has the power to transform lives, guide decisions, and bring peace, even in the midst of chaos. That principle: put God first. You can have money, you can have fame, cars, women, followers, all of it. You can be on top of the world today. But if you don't have God as your foundation, you're building your life on sand, and it's only a matter of time before it all crashes down. That's just how the world works. It's brutal. Because everything external is temporary. The car gets old. The bank balance goes up and down. The fame fades. And when life hits you, and it will hit you, none of those things can save you. They can't give you real strength. They can't give you peace. They can't fix your soul. You want to be truly powerful? Put God first. Make Him your foundation. That's where real strength comes from. Not from pretending you're invincible, but from knowing that your life is anchored to something eternal. I've seen men with everything: private jets, security, money pouring in, and yet they crumble when pressure comes, because their foundation is built on ego, pride, and pleasure. That kind of life might look impressive on the surface, but underneath it's hollow. Putting God first is not weakness. It's the highest form of discipline. It means saying, I'm not the center of the universe. I don't have all the answers. But I choose to live by principles that are higher than me. It's acknowledging that without a solid moral compass, without truth, you're just floating. You can justify anything. You can convince yourself that lies are truth and wrong is right. That's the world we live in now, everyone doing whatever feels good, whatever gains likes, whatever gets attention, but deep down they're all searching for something real. They're looking for a foundation. And they won't find it in fame and money or in status. They'll only find it when they put God first. Look, it's easy to say you believe in God when things are going your way. When business is booming, when you're on top. But what about when things fall apart? When the deal fails? When betrayal happens, when you're alone, and your health is gone and the people you trusted aren't there anymore, then what? That's when it becomes clear what your life is built on. That's when the mask falls off and reality hits. If God isn't your foundation, you're left with nothing. If He is, you're unshakable. That's why I say it starts with discipline. If you don't pray, you're not serious about life. If you wake up and the first thing you do is check your phone, scroll through nonsense, chase dopamine, you're already building your day on distraction, not on God. What if instead you said, before I step into this day, I acknowledge that I need divine guidance. I need strength that doesn't come from me. I'm not here by accident. I have a mission, and I'm going to align myself with it. That's power. That's purpose. And that's putting God first. I'm not saying life becomes perfect when you put God first. It won't. You'll still face struggle, but you'll be rooted. When people talk behind your back, you'll have peace. When failure happens, you'll keep standing. Why? Because you're not defined by the external. You know who you belong to. You know that everything you go through has purpose, and that makes you dangerous to the darkness in this world. You want to be a real leader? You want to be respected? Start by fearing God. Not in a scared religious way, but with reverence. Understanding that God sees everything. The lies, the lust, the pride. You can hide it from others, but not from Him. And when you live like that, knowing you're accountable to someone higher, you start walking differently. You stop compromising, you start leading your life with integrity. And people notice that. Even those who don't believe, they respect a man who lives by conviction. There's a reason so many people who appear successful are still lost. They've achieved everything the world told them would make them happy. But they feel hollow, anxious, like something's missing. Because without God, you're always chasing something more money, more approval, more control. But with God, you're secure even when you have less. You don't need applause to feel worthy. You don't need luxury to feel rich. You don't need validation to know your value. You walk in peace because your identity isn't tied to what you do, it's tied to who you serve. And don't get it twisted, this isn't about becoming soft. This isn't about being passive or hiding in religion. Putting God first makes you sharper. You become more focused. You stop wasting time. You cut off toxic habits. You elevate your thinking. You become a man or a woman who stands out because you're not playing the same games everyone else is playing. You're walking with clarity because you're rooted in truth. So ask yourself, what's your foundation? Is it your hustle, your talent, your appearance? All of that can be taken away in an instant. But if God is your foundation, if He is truly first, then you are immovable. You are unshaken. You are free. Put God first, not just on Sunday, not just when it's convenient. Put Him first every day. In your decision, in your discipline, in your mindset. And you'll build a life that storms can't shake and people can't break. That's the only kind of life worth building. It's easy to say we put God first, with our mouths. But the real test is how we live. Not once a week, not when everything's falling apart. I'm talking about in the quiet moments, the daily choices, the hidden motives, the things no one else sees. Because putting God first isn't about words. It's about priorities. It's about who sits at the center of your decisions, your time, your habits, and your heart. That's where it becomes real. We live in a world that constantly pulls our attention in 100 different directions. Our phones demand it. Work demands it. People demand it. There's always a notification, always a voice saying, this matters more. And slowly, we start shifting. Not on purpose, not always consciously, but little by little, God moves from first to second. From second to somewhere in the background. Not gone, but no longer leading. That's why putting God first has to be intentional. It's not a feeling, it's a discipline. You choose. You wake up in the morning and instead of diving into emails or social media, you pause. You give God your first thoughts. Maybe you sit in silence, maybe you open the Word. Maybe it's a short prayer. It doesn't have to be dramatic, but it has to be real. You're saying, God, before I do anything else, I want to hear from you. That one choice can shift the course of your entire day. But it goes further than that. Putting God first means involving Him in your actual decision-making. What are you planning? What are you pursuing? When you're faced with opportunity, do you ask, is this from God or is this just noise? When you're tired and tempted to compromise, do you pause and ask, would this honor Him or would this feed my pride or fear? The truth is, we all make decisions every day that shape the direction of our lives. Big and small. Who we date, where we work, how we respond in conflict, what we allow into our minds, what we spend our time chasing. These aren't just surface choices, they're windows into our true priorities. If God is really first, we don't just consult Him when things are tough. We seek His voice when things are good. We trust His guidance even when it's not convenient. That's not always easy. Sometimes God's way is slower. Sometimes He says wait when we want now. Sometimes He says no to something that looks perfect on paper. But if we're serious about putting Him first, we don't just chase what we want, we follow where He leads. I've learned that the more I submit my daily decisions to God, the more peace I have, even when the outcome isn't what I expected. There's a strange kind of freedom that comes when you stop carrying the pressure to figure everything out yourself. You stop trying to manipulate outcomes or impress people, and instead you ask one question. God, is this your will? And if it is, you walk boldly. And if it's not, you walk away, even if it costs you something. That kind of obedience builds strength and maturity that success alone never will. It also builds consistency. You don't become a person of faith because of one big decision. You become a person of faith by choosing God in 1,000 small decisions no one else applauds. Every time you forgive, instead of holding a grudge. Every time you speak life when it would be easier to criticize. Every time you pray when you don't feel like it. That's what putting God first looks like in real life. And let's be honest, sometimes it feels easier to keep God on the edge of our lives, rather than the center. Because when He's at the center, He challenges us. He convicts us. He won't let us settle. He calls us to be better, to live differently. And that takes courage. It takes humility to say, God, I need you more than I need control. I want your way more than my way. But that's the beauty of it. When God is first, everything else starts to make sense. The pressure lifts, the anxiety quiets, because you're no longer navigating life based on your own limited perspective. You're walking with wisdom, with purpose, with direction. Even when things don't go the way you planned, you can trust that they're going the way He planned. and that changes everything. It changes how you work. You're not just chasing money, you're honoring God with excellence. It changes how you love. You're not just reacting emotionally, you're loving with patience and grace. It changes how you see people. You don't just use them, you serve them. Because when God is first, your heart shifts, your motives purify, your values realign. And suddenly you realize that putting God first isn't just about honoring Him, it's about becoming who you were truly made to be. It's about living fully awake, fully free, fully alive. It's about walking in step with the one who knows you, who made you, and who sees the road ahead, even when you don't. So wherever you are in life, whether things are going well or falling apart, ask yourself, what's guiding your decisions? Is it fear, ego, popular opinion, or is it God? Because if it's not God, it won't last. But if it is God, even the tough decisions become stepping stones to something greater. Even the painful seasons have purpose. Even your failures can become fuel for growth. Putting God first isn't about perfection. It's about surrender. It's about realignment every single day. And when you do that, day after day, year after year, you build a life that reflects the glory of God in every detail. And there's nothing more powerful than that. So don't wait for a crisis to prioritize Him. Start today. Start now. Put God first in everything. One of the hardest parts of putting God first is learning to trust His timing and His plan, especially when it doesn't match ours. We live in a world obsessed with speed, faster results, instant updates, next-day delivery. We've been conditioned to think that if something doesn't happen quickly, it's not happening at all. And that's where frustration creeps in, because God doesn't operate on our timeline. He's not in a rush. He sees the full picture, while we see only a small part. There are moments in life when it feels like God is silent. You pray, you wait, you do all the right things. And still, nothing. Doors stay closed, people walk away. Opportunities seem to pass by. It's in those moments where our faith is truly tested. Do we still put Him first when the blessing doesn't come immediately? Do we still believe He's working when we can't see the evidence? Trusting God's timing isn't passive. It's not sitting back with crossed arms saying, well, I guess I'll just wait around. No, it's active surrender. It's saying, God, I don't understand this right now. I would have written this story differently, but I trust that you know what I need more than I do. It's hard. Let's not pretend it's easy. When you've been praying for years, when you've watched other people receive what you've been asking for, when you feel forgotten, it's painful. But here's the truth. Delay does not mean denial. Just because it hasn't happened yet, doesn't mean it never will. God's not yet is not the same as no. Sometimes He's building something in you first before He builds something for you. We love the idea of God opening doors, but rarely do we appreciate the times He closes them. We assume every closed door is rejection, but it could be protection. It could be redirection. It could be preparation. You don't know what He's saving you from. You don't know what still needs to grow inside you. God is never random. He doesn't waste time, and He doesn't waste pain. Everything has a purpose, even the way. Think about it. Some of the most powerful people in Scripture went through seasons of silence. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness. David was anointed king, but then ran for his life for years. Joseph had dreams of leadership, but was thrown in a pit, sold into slavery and locked in prison. If they had given up in the middle of the process, they would have missed the promise. But they didn't. They stayed faithful. They trusted that even in the delay, God was still present. And He was. What's God doing in your waiting? He's shaping you. He's refining your character. He's preparing you to handle what you're asking for. Sometimes the delay is God's way of saying, I hear you, but you're not ready yet. Not because He's punishing you, but because He loves you too much to give you something that would crush you if you're not prepared. And trust me, timing matters. Getting the right thing at the wrong time can become a burden instead of a blessing. You don't want to arrive at a place unprepared spiritually, emotionally, or mentally. You want to walk into it knowing God brought you there at the perfect moment. Not a second too soon or too late. But while you wait, don't stop living. Don't put your purpose on pause. Don't spend your life staring at a closed door while new ones are opening right beside you. Faith isn't just believing that God can do it. It's trusting Him even if He hasn't yet. It's serving while waiting. It's worshiping through the silence. It's doing today with excellence even if you don't see tomorrow clearly. We don't always get to understand why things unfold the way they do, but we're not called to understand everything. We're called to trust. We're called to walk by faith, not by sight. And that kind of trust only comes from intimacy with God. The more you know Him, the more you'll trust Him, and the more you trust Him, the less anxious you'll be about things not going your way. You'll start to realize that peace isn't the result of getting everything you want. It's the result of knowing you're walking with God. Even when life doesn't make sense, His plan is bigger than yours. His vision stretches beyond what you can see right now. And the beautiful thing is, He's more concerned with who you're becoming than with how fast you're getting there. So if you're in a waiting season, let this be your reminder. God hasn't forgotten you. He sees you. He hears you. And He's still writing your story. Don't let impatience or pressure from others push you into taking shortcuts. Don't try to force what only God can open. Don't settle just because the wait is uncomfortable. What God has for you is worth waiting for, always. When you really put God first, you stop measuring success by speed. You stop living on your own schedule. You let go of comparing your timeline to someone else's highlight reel, and you begin to rest. Not because everything is easy, but because you trust the one who holds time in His hands. This is what maturity looks like. Not just praising God when He says yes, but praising Him when He says wait. Not just seeking Him for the breakthrough, but loving Him even in the delay. Because it's in the waiting that your faith is deepened. It's in the silence that your roots grow deep. And it's in the tension between now and not yet that you learn to truly walk with God. Not just follow Him when it's convenient. So breathe. You don't have to rush what God is doing. You don't have to carry the pressure to figure it all out. Just keep showing up. Keep trusting. Keep obeying. He's not late. He's not ignoring you. He's preparing you for something greater than you imagined. Let Him write the story. Let Him set the pace. Trust His timing and keep putting Him first. It's one thing to say we believe in God. It's another to live like. Putting God first isn't just about what we believe in our hearts or say with our mouths. It's about what we do. It's about how we live when no one's watching. It's about our choices, our priorities, and how our faith shows up in the real world. If our faith doesn't move us to act, if it doesn't change how we live, how we speak, how we treat people, then we have to ask, is God really first? Faith isn't a feeling. It's not a box we check. It's not something we pull out when we're desperate or struggling. Faith is a lifestyle. It's meant to show up in our relationships, our work, our integrity, our generosity, our humility. If we truly put God first, people around us should feel it. Even if they don't understand it, they should sense something different in the way we lead, serve, forgive, and carry ourselves. The world doesn't need more people who talk about God. It needs more people who reflect Him. And reflection doesn't happen by accident. It happens when we choose to live aligned with His heart, daily, intentionally, not for applause, not for attention, but because we love Him, and we want our lives to point back to Him. Sometimes the greatest act of faith isn't standing on a stage or doing something big. It's doing the right thing when it's inconvenient. Choosing kindness when no one returns it. Being honest when it would be easier to lie. Staying faithful when no one else is looking. These moments might seem small, but they're sacred. They reveal where our foundation really is. And that's the beauty of putting God first. It shifts the way you see every part of your life. Suddenly, work isn't just work. It's worship. You show up with purpose, not just to earn a paycheck, but to honor God with excellence. Family isn't just responsibility, it's ministry. The way you love, lead, and invest in the people closest to you becomes a reflection of the way God loves you. Your time, your energy, your resources, they're no longer yours alone. You begin to ask, how can I use what I've been given to serve something bigger than me? When we start living our faith through action, the gospel becomes more than a message. It becomes a life. It means that people don't just hear about God through what we say. They see Him through how we live, through the way we handle pressure, through the way we respond to criticism, through the way we treat those who can do nothing for us. Every decision becomes an opportunity to reflect Christ. And in a world full of performance, noise, and self-promotion, that kind of life speaks volumes. But make no mistake, living out your faith will cost you. It might cost you popularity. It might cost you opportunities. It might cost you comfort. But what you gain is so much greater. You gain peace. You gain purpose. You gain the kind of integrity that money can't buy and success can't replace. And at the end of the day, when you lay your head down, you'll know you lived for something real. Don't let fear or pressure convince you to hide your faith. Don't compartmentalize God to Sundays or moments of crisis. Let Him be part of everything.
Let him guide your words, your steps, your decisions. Not in a showy or religious way, but in a way that's real, grounded, and full of grace. People aren't looking for perfect Christians. They're looking for authentic ones. People who fall but get back up. People who forgive quickly, love deeply, and serve joyfully. Not because it's easy, but because they know who they belong to. And that's really what it comes down to. When you know who you are in Christ, you stop trying to prove yourself. You stop chasing validation. You stop needing approval from people who don't even know your heart. You begin to walk with quiet confidence. Not arrogance, but peace. Because your worth isn't in your performance. It's in your position as a child of God. And from that place your actions flow. You live generously, because you know you're already provided for. You lead humbly, because you know who's really in charge. You love freely because you've been freely. There's a world watching, not just listening, but watching. Watching to see if what we say lines up with how we live. Watching to see if our faith makes any real difference. And we don't have to be perfect. We just have to be real. Real in our pursuit of God. Real in our love for others. Real in our willingness to follow Jesus, even when it's hard. So take inventory of your life. Look at your calendar. Look at your conversations. Look at the way you respond when things don't go your way. What do those moments say about who's first in your life? Is it God or is it comfort, image, ambition, control? Because if God is truly first, then it's going to show. Not just in your prayers but in your actions. Not just in your beliefs but in your behavior. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to take the next right step. Ask God to lead you, and then move. Serve someone. Encourage someone. Be generous when it doesn't make sense. Be bold when it's easier to stay silent. And watch what happens. Watch how God uses your obedience to impact the lives around you. Watch how your small acts of faithfulness start to ripple outward. Watch how your faith becomes alive. Not just something you believe, but something you live. Because when we put God first, we don't just live differently, we lead others to Him through our lives. And there is no greater calling than that. Let your life speak louder than your words.